I watched Trump's meeting with the Prime Minister of the UK, so you don't have to, and here's my overview, and I'll just say this at the beginning. If at any point you feel you need to pause me, go outside, touch grass, and recenter yourself, please do, because this is going to be a lot. Alright, the craziest thing, he said that hostages in Gaza were being stored in literally a pipe, and when they were running out of air, the door would be open so that they could breathe again, but that wasn't on purpose, it just so happened to be that they opened the door before they ran out of air. Let's get into it. He spoke for an hour and 10 minutes, and he mentioned Biden 7 times, and he will, at points in the speech, talk about Jeffrey Epstein. He says again, we spent $60 million on humanitarian aid for the Palestinians, but that number has already been debunked and is 30 million. And then he says it doesn't really matter because Hamas takes it or somebody else takes it, his words, but it gets taken. He says he met with the president of the EU yesterday, and some of you wanted to give me some flack for doing that, but all I can do is tell you what he is saying, and he said president of the EU. So don't shoot the messenger. Here's a direct quote talking about the hostages in Palestine. You get 10, you get 5, you get 2, you get 10, you get 12, you get 12 one time. He says Hamas uses their hostages as shields, so they won't give up the last 20 of them because then they'd have no hands to play. And then he says that they've become very difficult to work with over the past couple of days, but he's been working with Bibi Netanyahu on finding an answer, but it's a very difficult situation. He says he knows exactly where the hostages are and that if you use speed, it might be good for them and they'll have a better chance if you use speed. I have no idea what he's talking about. He claims again that he personally has stopped 6 different wars by using trade deals. Okay, he says that averages 1 a month, but he still can't end the one that he claimed that he was going to end on day 1. He says people don't use the term Gaza Strip anymore, but that's what it is, the Gaza Strip. And then he says he's going to put up food distribution places in the Gaza Strip. Oh yeah, he'll be doing that in conjunction with some good people. No names or nothing like that, just some good people. He then says that we've taken in trillions of dollars. At points, he has claimed that number to be as high as $17 trillion so that we can spend some money on the people in Gaza by setting up food centers that they can just walk into. He says Palestinians can see food 30 yards away from them, but they can't get to it because there were fences set up that they can't get past. And then later in the speech, he's going to say it's 35 or 40 yards away, but they can't get to it because there were lines. He says lines, not fences the second time, and that those were set up by Hamas. He says in the US we opened up nuclear about 2 months ago and that it's now totally safe. I will remind you the first nuclear reactor in the US was opened in 1942. And then he says that the Prime Minister has a perfect wife and family and that that's very difficult to do. He says he's going to set a new deadline for Russia to have a ceasefire, and that's going to be 10 or 12 days from today, so about 2 weeks. And then later in the speech, he says that he's going to announce that either tonight or tomorrow, even though he already announced it twice. He takes credit for airdropping aid into Palestine, but to the best of my research, the last time we did that was in early 2024. So he basically just saw Jordan and UAE airdropping aid into Palestine yesterday and took credit for it. He kept talking about how much his mother, who I will remind you was a Scottish immigrant, loved Scotland and loved the Queen, and said that she would travel back to Scotland every year religiously with his sisters. Oh yeah, and then later in the speech, he mistakenly says that his father was born in Germany. His father was born in the Bronx. He says that Israel is hampered on distributing the rest of the food to Gaza because of the remaining hostages. I just want to remind you, those hostages are also starving. So if no aid is going in, they are also not getting any aid. He says many hostages came to the Oval Office and he asked if there was any love. And then he asked the hostages, would they ever wink at you and be like, don't worry, you're going to be okay. Did they ever give any extra food? Not one said that there was any love from anybody. I swear to God that he said this. He said, you see it in the movies where someone is a prisoner and someone is helping. And you see in Germany where people will be let into an attic to hide. So now he's comparing the people who risked their lives to save people from the Holocaust to the Hamas captors, I guess. He says that Iran just got wiped out, not their nuclear facilities, just Iran in general, and that they were saying very bad and nasty things, and that they were saying things that they shouldn't be talking about, and they were giving Hamas signals and orders. He says COVID taught us a big lesson on pharmaceuticals and that we want all pharmaceuticals to be made in the US, even though some of them are going to be made in the UK apparently. And then he says they'll be announcing that sometime soon and that drug prices will be going way down very soon. He says he doesn't want to say that Putin is lying to him, but he'll have a good phone call with him, and then 3 to 4 hours later, missiles are flying into Kiev. But he reiterates he doesn't want to say that he's lying, per se. Then there was some little spat about whether or not Truth Social was banned in the UK, and the Prime Minister assured him that it was not banned in the UK, and that only sites related to suicide and teens was what was banned in the UK. And then Trump is like, well, if I'm banned, you better unban it. You better not censor me. He says the big beautiful bill is essentially a tax cut for everyone and that he feels confident saying it now that our country has never been better. And then he reiterates that he thinks when you cut taxes, there is large growth, even though history and economics have shown time and time again that trickle-down economics do not work. He, of course, says that our country was dead a year ago and that it was being run by really sick people who wanted horrible policies like men and women's sports and transgender for everyone. Again, I don't have any idea what transgender for everyone means. And then he says that the approval rating for Democrats is 15%. He says in his first term, he dropped the tax rate from 39% to 22%, and somehow we were taking in more money at the lower tax rate. I believe he's talking about the corporate tax rate here, which went from 35% to 21%, so he's wrong on that side. And then also his first administration, due to that bill being passed, ballooned our deficit. So all of this is just wholly untrue, and he can't even remember the numbers. He says in Ukraine, 5,000 soldiers are dying a week, and that's not even counting the people who are dying in villages. And then he immediately says that that number is obsolete and that it's actually 7,000 people per week. And then he says that he loves the Russian people and they've lost over 1 million individuals, so they need to just stop. He now made a claim that the Federal Reserve reno was going to cost $3.9 billion, even though last week he was saying it was $3.1 billion. And Jerome Powell called him out and said, no, it's actually $2.5 billion. And you're including a building that was completed 5 years ago in this, so this is not correct. He just made up the number 3.9. I think I'm going to end part 1 right there because at this point I'm about halfway through my notes and we're 6 minutes in, and TikTok forces you to have videos under 10 minutes if you make them on their platform, and I am making it on the TikTok platform. Yeah, there will be a part 2 to this because like I said, I'm about halfway through my notes. Go touch some grass, take a sip of water, and then come back for part 2. Thank you so much for being here, and please follow me if you don't. I personally am going to go drink water and touch grass, so expect the next video in, I don't know, 20-25 minutes.